Hey guys, and welcome to another Roar 3 Solutions product unveiling. So I'm real excited about this one. This is actually it's a remake of the original file that I was surprised at how popular it became very quickly. This is the remake of the regular Kit Fox S7 STI. You can go to roar3dsolutions.com and come and check out our store. And inside the store, you'll find all of our products, and we always try to be very reasonably priced on everything. It's completely intentional. Sorry for anyone out there that is also trying to sell products at much higher cost. I don't believe in that. So this is the model that we actually started with. It's the Kitfox S7. I call it version 11. It has an espresso driven paint scheme, so you could actually change the color of the paint livery and whatnot. And it's more recently that I've been getting more into UV mapping. So the one we're going to talk about today is actually properly UV mapped, so you can go ahead and make some of your own adjustments. But the original model, the complaints I got were more around the nacelle area, a couple of little things that didn't quite add up to what some people wanted. So we're going to talk about that and talk about a couple other things. So here we go. So this is the Titan S7 STI kit box, and what we've done is we've actually made a bunch of modifications. They're very minor, so if you've already purchased our kit box, reach out to me. I will absolutely give this to you at a cost of $5 for the updated model. It's quite a few hours worth of added work. And I just ask that if you are interested, continue your patronage and support your local 3D modeler. So what we did is we changed the cowling for one, so we have much larger cowl holes for better airflow, because what we're trying to emulate here is the Kitfox S7 STI Titan X340, which is a little 180 horsepower get up and go. Now, this aircraft in its normal state is actually a pretty cool setup, but one thing that's really exciting is Steve Pierce has gone over the top, taken this model, and he has turned it into a model you can use inside of X-Plane. Now, if you are an X-Plane enthusiast, I highly encourage going and checking out his page. I do not get any sponsorship by telling him or by marketing this product for anyone, but I highly recommend it. He did a phenomenal job. It's a ton of fun to fly in the simulation. He did a great job with all the liveries, which I've emulated a little bit of. He just really knows how to make a great airplane, and he's done a really good job on this, and everything is functional for the simulation. So if you're a sim guy, I highly encourage you to go to that website and check it out. Big Tire Productions is the name of his company that you can actually pull that file from. So what we've done is a couple of other things on top of just remodeling a couple of the areas. So there's a lot of cleanup work that was done within the windscreen. Here, I'll go here to Gorad Shading to make life easier, and a whole lot of other little bits and pieces that I didn't like. We didn't have any texturing for the tires before. I decided to go ahead forward and make some kind of dirty texture on it. But I'm going to get to some of the fun stuff on that here in a minute. So you do still have screws and rivets and lots of other little bits and pieces that are all over the place. Tie downs, turbulators on the wing. And it's meant to be a high quality model, so it's not meant for you to just take a really low quality model and toss it into a scene as a backdrop. However, we have adjusted it so you can do that, because sometimes that is what people want to do. So first and foremost, the model is driven by Espresso, so it is a rake model in Cinema 4D completely. You can pick this thing up and literally drop it in and go. Now, as of the moment, the livery is there's only one livery that I have, but what I've done is I now am starting to do a lot of UV mapping and unwrapping to make things so that you can go ahead and make some modifications yourself. So here is the UV map. This is included inside of the purchase file, so you'll be able to go ahead and make some adjustments. And if I were to pull up just to show you, let me go ahead and zoom this out. This is just in Paint, I apologize. if I were to pull this up and look at the file, this is what we have for this simple paint scheme. Just a couple of the stripes, we have the prop. One thing you don't see in the outline, which is going to be rectified, is the harness and seat belt that I've just made, and you have a couple little engine bits and whatnot. So very simple livery, very simple scheme, but you can make this as exciting and complicated as you want. Throw it into Substance Painter or into an artistic paint program and make it into whatever you would like. But you will be able to unwrap it very easily. So it's already set. There are a couple of overlapping areas. I'm going to work on that in the next iteration, but for the moment it's totally functional. So that's what we have for the EV mapping. I've also limited the number of textures to make life easier, so it is a quicker drop-in. And if you're not familiar, this is actually intended to be a very specific aircraft. The manufacturer does make this really pretty, silver scheme, and that's what we're going for here with the lime green kind of setup. It's just a cool looking plane. So if you're an experimental guy, you already know what a Kit Fox is, and you also know that it's an awesome plane to fly. I personally have a couple hours, and I love the airplane. They're just cool. So we have our level of detail in the editor. I always like to keep this low, but you can crank it up to a subdivision factor of 2 if you choose. And the render, I always recommend keeping at least a 2 or better. 2 will render out pretty quickly and give you a really nice product. And all the renders that you see on the web page are all only at a subdivision level of 2. I've added a new feature, a high and low details, because like I said, some people do want to just throw this into a scene and you want a long away image of it. You don't care about the up close, and you want it to render pretty quickly. So we do have this low detail. It removes the cockpit, removes a lot of the little detailed parts. You can see some of the struts are gone. The model still has all of the ribbing. I haven't changed any of that yet. Eventually you may see a model that is extremely low polygon and good for distance shots, but for right now that's what we have. Motor RPM, as always, crank that up. You have to get the timeline going to make that function, and it will also react if you have motion blur. So whenever you're running motion blur, if I come in here and let's just see if I can do this ever so quickly, and I'm to run through a quick render. Actually, it won't do that with the settings I have. And by the way, just so you know my settings, I am running the physical render under progressive. That's just to make life easier. I have ambient occlusion selected and global illumination under quasi Monte Carlo. So nothing fancy here. This is not Octane, no other high-end render, and I'm using the HDRI Studio Rig from Grayscale Gorilla because I love their products. And I'm using the just a metal HDRI to get this output. So as we progress through this, you also have the ability to, let's go ahead and get an angle here, to roll the ailerons, and as you see, the flight stick does adjust to the aileron roll as well. You have flap control, as the aircraft has, and then if we come to the back here and we look kind of closely at the tail, what you have your rudder control, which has a number of character constraints to be able to give you the rudder cables connecting, the tail wheel kind of rotating and the springs kind of adjusting. So things here are kind of a complicated mess, but it's definitely intended for really nice output when it's all said and done. We have the elevator, just the normal elevator up and down, and those are pitched appropriately as it says here on the indicator, up and down. And then of course we have the trim, so the entire elevator can kind of rock back and forth. So if you're making an animation, you want those kind of details, you definitely have them in there. So here comes the fun stuff. This is something that I just kind of threw in here, and I thought it would be kind of a neat thing. So we have tire melt. So these are big balloon tires, and as you see, it's kind of because they're big and balloony, we want them to be able to kind of rotate. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. I'm going to come down here, and if I select the right main wheel and I rotate, that's actually going to follow because I have the melt deformer, and this is a Cinema 4D deformer, but I have that deformer set up specifically for this rig. And again, if I want to bring that back, I have the ability to go ahead and you can have it kind of bounce around as it's hitting terrain if you choose. And you have individual control over each tire, because if you're doing a bush plane scene, that is how it works. And additionally with that, you also have the normal strut control. You have high and low strut control, and I normally leave it at midpoint, and you have it for each individual. And this has a whole lot of character constraint rigging as well, so a lot of aims and joints that are set up. And eventually I will set up a plate so that way you can by your choice kind of bounce it on the ground dynamically, but that is not set right now. We also have the pilot's and co-pilot's door respectively opening and closing, and you do have your little constraints so that you have some of the arms following. And if I look in here to the cockpit, we have an added harness, and as we already mentioned, we have the rudder control, you have your aileron control, and then you have your elevator control. And what you also have here is, if I look close in, I'm using a couple of deformers on those the boot for the flight stick, so you have kind of a nice added follow as you're making that rotation, so real clean if you're throwing this into an animation. And then obviously, right now we're kind of a low resolution. As we crank it up, that starts to clean up quite a bit and give us what we need. So I hope you guys enjoy this product. This is it's a fun one. It's a neat one. It's gonna give you it's just a really cool airplane in general. Please look for the product on roar3solutions.com. It'll also be available on cgtrader.com if you choose not to go through my website. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. As always, thanks for checking in, and happy modeling.